had just gone outside to get in the car to go get groceries. We had just returned from our family vacation in Delaware when we made a pretty awful discovery. At the time, I had lived in this neighborhood for 23 years. I had had all my firsts here, my first home, my first marriage, my first dog. In fact, thank God for the dog, because that's how you meet the neighbors. You meet the dog people, and I started meeting people. And then I was also blessed to have my first child there. I remember when my son John was born, it was a critical moment at the hospital. It's that time when you're about to leave and they hand you the baby. And I had this overwhelming feeling that I was gonna vomit. Like everything dropped, like, you know, when the whole stomach drops out from underneath you. And I panicked because I realized that I was supposed to know how to take care of this baby. And I had no idea. And the beauty of this neighborhood was that thankfully when I got home, I realized none of my friends knew how to take care of their babies either. And together we sort of started to learn how to be parents together. And it was a true blessing, and so therefore I had enough confidence to have 2 more children after that. Unfortunately, I also experienced one of the more challenging firsts, my hopefully first and only divorce. It was hard when this happens because your neighbors and you and my husband at the time, you're all really intertwined. And I was really overwhelmed and grateful to this neighborhood because they never really chose sides. They really supported each one of us in our process, and my ex-husband moved out, and this group of people continued to support our family, specifically me when I was running late for the bus from work, and my neighbors would pick up my kids off the bus so I could get them home. Or when my son split his lip open and I needed to rush him to the ER, the rest of the neighborhood just said, leave the other 2 here, and off we went to help him get stitches. And so these were the types of experiences that I had had in this neighborhood up until this point. So, and even when 13 years ago when I met Lori, much to their surprise, they welcomed her with open arms too, without really any questions. In fact, I really think they like her more than they like me now, and I've had to adjust to that reality. But that day when we were heading out for groceries, when Lori spotted that our peace flag was missing, and we had hung a flag 2 months prior in honor of the Orlando shooting. And so when we both saw this, the 2 of us were standing together in the driveway, looking at one another, trying to come up with an explanation that wasn't the explanation we most feared. I was reeling inside. Immediately my head started spinning, like who around us wasn't accepting of us? There had never been any signs of it, so I was in complete shock. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lori, and she's looking at the front of our house, and she tells me that there's eggshells all over the house. So we go over there together and stand in front of the house, and I kid you not, like we look up to our bedroom window upstairs, covered in eggshells. Grace's bedroom upstairs, covered in eggshells. Claudia's bedroom downstairs, covered in eggshells. Our family room window, covered in eggshells. Our front door and our front porch. Eggs everywhere. And it's the middle of August. They are baked on good. It's like fried egg all over my house. And they'd been there for a few days. And it's hard to explain that feeling when you know, and if you've had experiences that have kind of been shocking like this, you know, like everything changes in that moment when your sense of safety is shattered. I had never experienced outward prejudice for being gay, and as I tried to make sense of it, though, I noticed Lori pacing back and forth in having an experience of her own. And I can see the history of shame and pain emanating from her body. She's trying to keep it together, I can see that, but it's clear that she's falling apart inside. Lori came into knowing that she was gay in the 1980s. And that was a really challenging time. There was an incredible amount of homophobia because the HIV crisis was taking over and people were petrified. So the last thing that she wanted to be was gay. And I had heard all those stories. Like, I knew those things intimately from her. But it was different to watch the pain and the shame show itself on her in such a profound way. What I was witnessing, I was learning something new and deeply traumatic that my wife had experienced as a younger woman. Me, on the other hand, I sort of came into discovering that I was gay later in life, and so we were both coming from very different places. Finally, we decided to do what most people do when we're in a crisis. We get busy. Lori ran to get some cleaning supplies, and I went inside to communicate, called the police, and communicated to my neighbors on Facebook to see if anybody had seen anything. Pretty quickly, I got responses from neighbors saying that they were shocked just as we were and dismayed that it would ever happen in our neighborhood. Even though this made me feel a little bit better, I was still just really reeling from the whole experience. How could we not be accepted here in this place? I joined Lori out on the front step. We got our scrub brushes, our pails of water, our soap, and in some weird cathartic way, we were trying to scrub the eggs and scrub this experience away from us. What was happening as we scrubbed, we cried, we processed, we expressed our emotions, our pain, our anger, our confusion, and all of the sort of just overwhelming fear that was kind of bubbling up in both of us. At this time, 2 of our friends came by to check in on us and let us know that they hadn't seen anything. And they were asking us a lot of questions about our peace flag and wanted to just remind us that they were there to support us. And obviously that made us feel better. They were intending to make us feel less alone, but that didn't really impact anything as we kept scrubbing and no egg was being removed from our house. Literally, apparently, eggs are very bad for the house. Eggs destroy wood, and so we scrubbed for hours and never really got anywhere. Our neighbors returned shortly thereafter, and with them, we noticed kids playing in the street, kids riding bikes, and 8 kids came into our yard with 4 adults. And they came to share with us that they had just finished delivering 22 peace flags to our neighbors. There were peace flags now hanging at 22 homes, and they wanted to let us know that everybody wanted to do something to try to impact what we had just discovered. So to go from this place of despair to this place of just overwhelming emotion, we just both started crying and thanking them for what they had done. It was a powerful moment to, in that moment, sort of feel like, whoa, okay, maybe this neighborhood is what we believed that it was. And maybe we would actually be okay and we would recover from this. When we finally went to the grocery store later that day, we were driving out of the neighborhood and we saw the peace flag hanging at the Mazzolas, and the peace flag on the door at the Gons, and the peace flag hanging on the tree at the Kellers, and the peace flag on the door driving out of our neighborhood at the O'Donohues, and then the one on the fence at the Mangans. And that drive out of the neighborhood was a really poignant one where it really set in. We were overwhelmed with the love and kindness that we felt in that moment. Within 3 days, 22 flags turned into 68 flags. When people were returning from home for what they were doing during the summer, they quickly got one hung in their neighborhood, and our pain was transforming. Our Jewish neighbors came and shared their stories of why it was important for them to hang a flag. Our African American neighbors came and shared the story why it was important for them to hang the flag. And we were beginning to feel deeply connected to our neighbors in a whole different way, not just based on what we were feeling, but based on what they had been through or their families had been through. And over time, the story was seen in the news and social media, and people all over the world were contacting us through all sorts of venues. We were asked to give interviews and go on different forums to talk about things. We heard deep stories of fears from people all around the world, people that were afraid they couldn't even, weren't safe, coming out of their home. This story impacted people's ability to believe and have hope and faith in people and in community. Most people who are victims of crimes of hate live in fear and anxiety for the rest of their lives. This experience could have ended for us like this, but it didn't. Because of our neighbors' actions, Lori and I have participated in the most loving and uplifting experiences that we would have never even predicted. Most recently, Nancy Chernin, who's a children's author who lives in Texas, asked to tell the story, and she published a book called Rainbow Allies. And it's the story of the children in our neighborhood visiting, delivering peace flags to the neighbors. It's just beautiful. And now more than ever, I believe my neighbors' actions and kindness have been a powerful teacher for so many, and that small acts of kindness really do connect us and change the world. As far as who stole my peace flag, well, I never think about that. Thank you.